China, first or second largest economy based on how you judge it, is putting sanctions on America. The sanctions have to do with the invasion of Iraq, the war crimes that are being alleged in Afghanistan and, for the matter, Iraq, the invasion of Syria and the killing of the 500,000 Syrians resulting from that civil war. There was also mention of Libya. There was mention of what was taking place in regards to Honduras and the help, or I should say, the U.S. potential access or actions in Bolivia, but also the actions in Venezuela, the riding that country and the will of that country by trying to install some random guy into that country, Juan Guaido, as president, a person who was not elected and the overwhelming majority of the public didn't even know. And the willingness to have violent uprisings, if that served their purpose of getting rid of Maduro. Even now, Abrams, the person who basically was convicted for lying to Congress in his pursuit of trying to get rid of working with those kill squads, well, he is now the person who's working supposedly on Iran. And so this, it's understandable if some of the other world powers out there have qualms and issues with some of the policies that the United States have taken that have ended up killing a lot of people. That includes the destruction of the oil fields, or the theft of the oil fields in Syria, and the destruction of the grain in that country. Again, with the sole purpose of pushing that country out of some level of food security. Now, this would make all the sense in the world if this happened, but this didn't happen. China, Russia, European economies, none of those countries sanctioned America for the actions that America was taking around the globe that were either illegal or illegal by international law, or hell, even illegal by our own laws. Those things were not necessarily sanctioned, even though all of those things would have been worthy of sanctions, let alone, in and of themselves, impeachment of any particular president that was going through those particular plans. No, the world doesn't do that. America does that. And America would take unilateral action or unilateral sanctions on other countries as they pursue their aims, even when those aims have nothing to do with America. Right now, the United States has just sanctioned Carrie Lam. And they're sanctioning Lam because she's carrying out the policies of China. Interestingly to note, Hong Kong is part of China. Meaning the laws and whatnot that are passed in Hong Kong, regardless of the interests of Britain, regardless of the interests of the United States, those things are part and parcel to China, not to the United States. I mean, China, for that matter, could have said, you have 25% of the world in your prisons. That's a problem. That's horrible. We don't want to do business with you. We're sanctioning you for that. They can even make the case to say, you kill 1,000 people a year. Your police forces, your domestic police forces, kill 1,000 people a year. Little to none of them, like 99%, walk. We think that's atrocious and appalling for a country of the U.S. stature to walk around like that. There's all sorts of things that China could come to the decision of sanctioning the United States on based on things that are internal to U.S. policy. They don't do that because that's stupid to do. The only reason that they would do something like that is because they're trying to use politics as a way of undermining that country economically. We, in this country, have become aware and are concerned about China and the growth of China. China has a billion people, 1.3 billion people. That's 3-4 times our population. And as a country develops, you would think just as a natural momentum that the country of that size, with that amount of infrastructure and potential for infrastructure and technology, would expand. How could it not? It would be weird if it did. From the perspective of the U.S., though, that expansion undermines our political and economic might around the globe. And the thing that we do have at our disposal is military. If the other two things fail, we have military. This is the reason for the South China Sea stuff, the conflict in the South China Sea. This is the reason that we're working with Taiwan to put missile and weapon systems in Taiwan. This is the reason why we're having those missile systems in Japan, and you have all of those people in those areas protesting those military bases. But those bases are there, again, to cow China. From China's point of view, they have every right to expand. Why wouldn't they have every right to expand? They have every right, as any country has the right to expand. The catch becomes, do you trespass on others to do so? And it's almost just by very definition of a country being that size, in some way, you will take up space and you will create a certain degree of regional conflict. But the United States is not in a region. The United States is acting as if something that has taken place in China is some business of America. It is not. And these this attacks, these undermining of China, is basically what this is for. The entire point of working with Hong Kong, I believe the guy's name is Jimmy Lai, one of the oligarchs that are in Hong Kong that are working with the United States, or have been working with the United States to help the pro-democracy protesters, as they are called, the guys who are stabbing cops and burning down police stations, those guys, pro-democracy guys, or stabbing people who were disagreed with them, or beating up people who disagreed with them in the streets. These are the people who we were working with in order to destabilize Hong Kong. The entire point of that destabilization was to either provoke China into a massive response where the world can point and judge and try to take some kind of world collective action based on something that China did, or let it go to chaos. Either one of those work. The solution that China came up with was to not be overbearing, and to basically use law and work with institutions that are there at their disposal to try to deal with the situation. Some of those were putting pressures on businesses. Some of those were firing people who they saw who were out part of the protests and engaged in that type of behavior. Parts of those were arrests. But what you didn't see were the cops mowing down protesters. What you saw were protesters attacking cops. Hong Kong, or China, puts out a new law. That security law recognizes that foreign actors are working in Hong Kong in order to destabilize China. They're not insane. They know exactly what is taking place. They've alluded to it on more than one occasion, that we won't tolerate other countries intervening into matters and affairs that are pertinent to China. Hong Kong is one of those affairs. Whatever I think about China or Hong Kong or the protesters in those places, it doesn't entirely matter all that much because the issue is not pertinent to me or us. That doesn't stop the U.S. from engaging in undermining policy, or policy to basically attack the nation that they don't particularly like. In this case, China. Trump had his own way of trying to deal with China, basically the trade war and everything else, basically shooting himself in the face. Obama was trying to do and deal with this with the Trans-Pacific Partnership, basically working with other countries to try to isolate China. China's response was the Belt and Road Initiative of trying to work with all of those other countries to create and establish and strengthen those trade relationships. That sounds like a great idea to me, working with countries through cooperation as opposed to some kind of use of force. I like that. Biden will most likely go back to the Trans-Pacific Partnership. None of these policies are all that great. And cooperation would ideally be the way to go about it, but this relationship has either been tarnished or that much more strained by either the Democratic Party or the Republican Party, the policies and the rhetoric that have been coming out of both of those. This is CNBC. According to the department, the Treasury Department designated Carrie Lam, for her role in overseeing and implementing Beijing's policies of suppression of freedom and democratic process. Have they seen our elections? Have they seen our elections? According to the department, Lam pushed last year to allow for extradition of mainland China, setting off a series of massive opposition demonstrations for Hong Kong. The Trump administration has been critical of Beijing's recent decisions to pass a sweeping national security law aimed at limiting Hong Kong's autonomy and banning literature critical of the Chinese Communist Party. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, the man who basically screamed to a room full of people that he lied, cheated, and stole for a living, has described the new law as an Orwellian move and an assault on the rights and freedoms of the people of Hong Kong. What is Orwellian? Is Mike Pompeo saying anything? that is pertaining to a country we don't particularly like. Pompeo lies for a living. The things that he says and come out of his mouth are disturbingly off off of his rocker. Meaning, he will get into a mic or get in front of a mic, get in front of a camera, and just lie. He has no issue about it. There's no compunction about it. He just does it. In this very specific case, I don't care if they made literature, banning literature criticizing the Chinese Communist Party. What people don't fully understand is that when countries are at war or at odds, those countries do things to protect the integrity of those countries. It's not an issue of right and wrong. It's an issue about cause and effect in regards to what they believe they need to do in order to maintain their standing. The United States is a superpower. That's a superpower that has put China in their sights, not just rhetorically, but also through issues of policy, issues of law. The banning of TikTok, for example, or the getting rid of people from the consulate or the embassy, or, in this case, passing sanctions on people of another country for dealing with the affairs of people in that country. It's just astonishing. Along with Lam, Treasury is sanctioning Chris Tiang, Stephen Low, John Lee, Ka Xing, Teresa Cheng, Eric Sang, Zia Blung, Zhang or Zhang, Xiaoming, Leo Hunning, Zenoxing, and Eric Chan. As a result of today's actions, all property interests and property of individuals named above and of entities that are owned, directed, or indirectly 50% or more by them individually, or they will be blocked, or persons will be blocked that are of the United States, or possessions that are in control of the United States persons are blocked and must be reported to OFAC, according to the announcement. This is stupid. It's just stupid. China is one of the second largest economies. The businesses in this country decided to do business with them because they realized they can make a huge amount of profit by getting those things built in China, paying those people less, firing the American workers, and passing trade deals to have those items shipped back in China. Those companies got magnificently wealthy off of that deal. Now the U.S. is realizing, oh, wait, they're expanding, they're evolving in regards to their society and the number of people who they pull out of poverty. And they look into the future and say that country is going to be a competitor to us. And an economic competitor can quickly become a military competitor, especially if they need to maintain their own sovereignty. We are creating our monsters. And this one is the second largest or first largest economy that has Russia as an ally, meaning nuclear power nations at odds with one another. This is not good. This is not good. Like, share, and subscribe. Emblemed fate. If Trump and the U.S. government really cared about fake news, why doesn't he just break up all of these media companies? He's a fake, completely full of crap. He doesn't have power to do that. I don't think Trump has the ability to go in and just break up the media companies, especially with the politics of now. All of those companies would howl that this is an overreach of presidential authority and that he was attacking the companies explicitly because they were criticizing him. I don't think he has the clout, the leeway, or the power to do any of that. And if he did try to do that, that would be the area of most resistance. Let's say it that way. Not to mention, Trump uses media as his foil, meaning it's something that he pushes back against, and he gets a certain degree of credibility from his own base for doing so. So I don't know if Trump could go that route. Maybe. I mean, it is Trump after all. Whether it's legal or not is almost secondary to whether or not he could potentially try it. I just don't necessarily think it bodes well for him, and I think there are all sorts of threats going in that particular direction. The best that Trump may be able to get is basically a hostile media. I don't think the best he gets out of it is trying to break up those media companies. Do I think they should be broken up? Yes. Is Trump going to be the person to do it? I highly doubt it. Like, share, and of course, subscribe.